This video demonstrates the assembly of a 3-panel knockdown sliding patio door with nail fins. The assembly of a block frame sliding patio door is similar. Prepare the rough opening by following the opening preparation steps as shown in the installation instructions available on installpella.com. The frame pieces come in 2 separate packages. One contains the head and sill, and the other contains the jambs along with the fasteners, other assembly parts, sealant, and any additional needed instructions, such as joiner instructions for 3-panel doors. Unbox the frame parts and lay them out on a smooth, clean surface. Pella recommends laying them out on cardboard to protect the finish as shown here. Place all the frame sub-assemblies exterior side up. Jambs have a straight cut on one end and a mitered end on the other. The jamb straight cut always mates to the sill. Position one end of the head sub-assembly and insert the exposed corner lock into a jamb sub-assembly. Make sure the miter joint is tight. Repeat on the other head to jamb corner. Install 2 number 8 by 3/4 inch Phillips flathead screws into each corner. Repeat on the other head to jamb corner. Using the included Pella installation sealant, inject sealant into one corner of the head to jamb subassembly. Slowly inject sealant while keeping pressure against the injection port. When sealant is observed at both head witness hole locations, stop sealant application. Repeat on the other head to jamb corner. On the sill subassembly, remove the release liner from the 2 gray butyl pieces from each end of the sill. Position one end of the sill subassembly and insert it into the jamb subassembly. Make sure the sill is fully seated into the jamb. Repeat on the other sill to jamb corner. Install 4 number 8 by 3/4 inch Phillips flathead screws into the corner. Repeat on the other sill to jamb corner. For frames provided with installation fins, install the flexible fin corners. Remove the outer portion of the backing from a new fin corner by pulling on the tabs at the corners. Align the front edge of the fin corner in the middle of the frame cladding so it is adhered to both the cladding and the installation fin. Align the front locating notch with the corner of the frame. Fold the fin corner over the corner of the frame and rub firmly over the entire surface to activate the adhesive and ensure a good seal. Lift the installation fin just enough to fold under and adhere the tab to the fin corner to the back of the installation fin. When ready to install, fold out the fins on the jambs and head. This will stretch out each fin corner. Be sure to move the frame from the floor to the rough opening in unison with one person at each jamb so not to introduce twist and racking onto the unsupported frame. Install the frame into a properly prepared opening using the appropriate installation instructions on installpella.com. Do not shim or install any fasteners into the frame head until after the fixed panel is installed. Screws are required at the sill for performance upgrade units or units wider than 95 1/4 inches. Remove the sill screw covers to expose the installation holes in the sill. Pella recommends filling each sill installation hole with sealant prior to driving the installation screws. Another best practice is to add sealant to each screw head when driving screws through the sill and into the rough opening. Reinstall the screw covers after the screw and sealant installation. Locate the fixed cap in the exterior channel in the center of the frame head. The fixed cap must be removed before installing the fixed panel. Remove and save the attachment screw for reinstallation later. Grasp and twist the fixed cap 90 degrees to release it from the frame. Remove and save for later use. If removing the cap, keep the fixed cap and screw. Temporarily store them in a safe location. These will be reused when the fixed panel is installed. An alternate option is to leave the fixed cap in the frame head and slide it out of the way toward the lock jamb once the screw is removed. Be sure to store the screw in a safe location for reuse when the fixed panel is installed. The vent, fixed, and joining panels are each shipped in separate packages. Locate the fixed panel package and remove the packaging. As a reminder, the fixed panel is the panel without any holes or lock. The fixed panel will be upside down in the package and will need to be flipped before installation. The bottom of the fixed panel has spacers which protect the bottom mohair weather strip during shipping. Remove these spacers to prepare the fixed panel for installation. Before installing the panel into the frame, place a 2-inch wide strip of painter's tape on the interior side of the fixed panel on the bottom rail. Here the fixed panel is shown with the bottom rail up because this is how it was oriented when removed from the packaging. The tape should start 2.5 inches from the edge of the interlocker side of the panel, which is the side opposite the stile with the black weather strip, and run just past the middle of the panel. This tape is to protect the interior finish from scratches while installing the panel. Looking at the sill, the fixed side of the frame has 2 aluminum fixed supports onto which the fixed panel will be positioned. The fixed jamb is the side closest to the supports. Use suction cups on the glass if the panel is too heavy to grip and hold by the edges. Lift the panel through the opening and position the bottom of the panel at a slight angle so it clears the sill. Lower the panel slightly so the top of the panel can be inserted into the exterior head opening. Lift the panel all the way up into the head. Position the panel bottom over the 2 aluminum fixed sill supports. Lower the panel onto the supports. Make sure the groove on the bottom of the panel is properly positioned on the sill fixed supports. Slide the panel over into the fixed jamb until the panel stops. Confirm the panel is fully inserted into the jamb by taking a measurement as shown, from the frame to the stile and rail joint at the top and bottom of the panel. It should measure 2 1/16 of an inch when the fixed panel is completely inserted into the fixed frame. After the panel is fully inserted into the jamb, remove the painter's tape applied to the fixed panel. Remove the suction cups. From the interior, locate the bottom fixed bracket attached to the sill. Drill a 1/8 inch pilot hole through the 2 holes in the bracket about 5/8 inch deep. Attach this bracket to the wood face of the fixed panel using 2 number 8 by 5/8 inch pan head screws through the 2 holes in the bracket. Locate the top fixed bracket with 2 number 8 by 5/8 inch Phillips pan head screws. From the interior, insert the bracket at the top corner of the fixed panel. Install the screws into the 2 bracket holes. If there is a gap between the top of the fixed bracket and the frame head, shim above the vent lock strike to make sure the frame head is in contact with the top fixed bracket. The frame head must contact the top fixed bracket because in the following step, the fixed interlocker will be pushed up against the frame head to be positioned in the correct location. Using the second vent lock strike hole, drill a 5/32 inch pilot hole through the frame and into the rough opening. Install a number 10 by 2.5 inch Phillips pan head screw into the hole. Locate the interlocker. If the plastic part snapped on the metal interlocker is mislocated, it must be slid to the proper position. The plastic part must be flush with the end of the notch in the metal interlocker as shown here. From the interior, the interlocker is positioned onto the exposed side of the fixed panel with the black portion of the interlocker toward the interior. Let's look at the interlocker installation steps again, but in more detail. Start by angling the top of the interlocker to the fixed panel edge near the frame head. Push the interlocker up against the head while aligning the interlocker clad clip with the groove on the exterior panel cladding. Tilt the lower portion of the interlocker against the panel edge while making sure the clad lip is going into the groove on the panel cladding edge. At the sill, make sure the small groove on the bottom of the interlocker cladding is aligned with the appropriate portion of the sill. Push the interlocker completely against the panel edge. Tap along the length of the interlocker to confirm it is fully attached. Before driving the screws, make sure the interlocker is held tightly in place against the fixed panel and pushed up against the head. Attach the interlocker to the fixed panel by installing a number 8 by 1 inch pan head screw through each available hole in the interlocker and into the interior face of the fixed panel. Locate the fixed cap. If the fixed cap was slid over in the head out of the way earlier, slide the cap against the interlocker at the top of the head. If it was previously removed, position the fixed cap fully against the top of the head. Twist the cap 90 degrees until it locks into place, making sure the vertical wall of the part is facing the side of the fixed panel. Install the saved number 8 by 5/8 inch pan head screw into the cap hole closest to the frame head exterior. Place shims above the head just at the fixed panel edge where the fixed cap will be located against the interlocker. Drill a 5/32 inch pilot hole through the empty hole in the fixed cap through the frame and into the rough opening. Install a number 10 by 2 1/2 inch Phillips pan head screw into the remaining hole. Refer again to the anchor page of the installation instructions and complete installing the remaining head fasteners as described. Be sure to install all the screws through the frame on either side of the vent lock strike and fixed bracket screws as mentioned on the instruction anchor page. The vent, fixed, and joining panels are each shipped in separate packages. Locate the vent panel package and remove the packaging. Just like the fixed panel, the vent panel will be upside down in the package. The bottom of the vent panel has rollers protected by shipping spacers which must be removed. Flip the panel over so the rollers are on the bottom. If a vent lock is included in the panel, flip the handle of the vent lock so the bolt tip is protruding above the top of the panel. Check the dimension of how far the bolt tip extends out from the top of the panel and adjust if needed. Confirm the bolt tip is 5/8 inch above the top of the panel. If not, turn the bolt tip until it is at 5/8 inch. Turn the bolt clockwise to lower the bolt more into the panel and counterclockwise to raise the bolt. Be sure to flip the vent lock handle back before installing the vent panel so the bolt tip isn't visible above the vent panel. Position the lock side of the panel to where it clears the anti-lift part in the frame head and lift the panel into the head cavity. Then position the panel so the rollers are above the sill track and place the rollers down onto the sill track. Locate the joining stop in the interior channel of the frame head. The joining stop must be moved before installing the joining panel. Remove the number 8 by 5/8 inch Phillips pan head joining stop screw and save it to reinstall after joining panel installation. Slide the joining stop towards the middle of the frame head to make room for the joining panel to be installed. The vent, fixed, and joining panels are each shipped in separate packages. Locate the joining panel package and remove the packaging. The bottom of the joining panel has spacers to protect the rollers during shipping. Remove these spacers to prepare the joining panel for installation. The joining panel has rollers on the bottom of the panel. The joining panel will be upside down in the package and will need to be flipped before installation. Measure the width of the joining panel. Then measure over from the frame jamb at the head using the panel width minus 2 inches and mark the location. An alternate method, instead of measuring the panel and deducting 2 inches to mark the location, is to measure over 5 inches from the center frame head hole. Place shims above the head and drill a 5/32 inch pilot hole through the frame at the groove closest to the interior and into the rough opening. Install a number 10 by 2 1/2 inch screw through the frame and into the rough opening. Use suction cups on the glass if the panel is too heavy to grip and hold by the edges. Orient the panel with the rollers at the bottom. Position the joining panel between the vent panel and the jamb and lift into the head cavity. With the joining panel fully pushed up into the head cavity, tilt the bottom of the panel into the unit until the rollers are above the track on the sill. Position the rollers on the track. Slide the panel over into the fixed jamb until the panel stops. Confirm the panel is fully inserted into the jamb by taking a measurement as shown from the frame to stile and rail or glass stop joint at the top and bottom of the panel. It should measure 2 1/16 inch when the fixed joining panel is completely inserted into the fixed frame jamb. Locate the joiner and the joiner bag of screws with the instructions. Install the joiner onto the joining panel using the separate instructions included. Locate the joiner assembly. Inspect the top and bottom end caps and make sure all the bristles are in place before installation. Note the plastic tab sticking out from the top of the joiner. This tab will help locate the joiner in the vertical position by resting on top of the joining panel when installed. Insert the top of the joiner into the head, going all the way up until it stops against the frame head. Push the joiner assembly against the panel. Gently lower the joiner assembly until it stops. The joiner assembly tab will then rest on top of the panel. Do not force the joiner assembly down as the plastic tab could break. As a reference, check the bottom of the joiner assembly on the interior. It should not be below the bottom of the panel. The bottom of the joiner should be approximately 1/16 of an inch above the bottom of the panel. If it is too high, it could result in air or water issues. Locate the number 8 by 2 inch Torx pan head screws and install them in all available joiner assembly attachment holes. Do not install these screws into any of the holes where the lock strikes will be installed later. Move the joining stop against the top of the joiner until it is pushed tight. This will prevent the panel from moving away from the jamb. Locate the number 8 by 5/8 inch Phillips pan head screw removed from the joining stop earlier. Slightly tighten the screw, but do not tighten all the way. Check to make sure the joining panel is pushed tight against the jamb. Finish tightening the screw. Position shims between the frame and rough opening above the joining stop and then drill a 5/32 inch pilot hole through the empty hole in the joining stop through the frame and into the rough opening. Install a number 10 by 2.5 inch Phillips pan head screw into the remaining hole. Install the lock strikes into the joiner assembly. Install 2 number 8 by 5/8 inch pan head screws per strike diagonally into the smallest pilot holes in the joiner. Test door operation. Check vent panel reveal and adjust the rollers as needed. Install 2 number 8 by 2.5 inch pan head screws per strike diagonally into the larger through holes in the joiner. Install the lock strike covers over the lock strikes. Install handles per the provided instructions in the handle package. If a vent lock is included, check the operation and adjust as needed.